Welcome to Red's Business and Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Nigel Heyn, and today I've got a very special guest, Jason Murrell. Welcome, Jason.
Very special. I like the sound of that. Hopefully we can make it special.
Flown in especially from Melbourne, mate, so I appreciate taking the time. Look, for those who don't know who you are, can you give us a bit of background, where you've come from and what you're doing today?
Yeah, well, probably cyber background. We can go back further than that. We sort of spoke a bit beforehand, but from a cyber point of view, really it was from domain names and hosting that we had a sort of client get hacked and lost 782,000. So it was three property settlements down. So we were selling, .com.au's and some hosting with it. They sort of pointed the finger at us, but when we investigated, it was one of those, man-in-the-middle attack sort of thing, and that sort of started the journey into cyber, and I've had the bug ever since. So everything we'll talk about today will be cyber-related, and it starts really from, cyber-aware and the awareness piece, and really rolled from there.
And today, chair of the Australian Cyber Network. What does that involve, Jace?
Well, we've set that up as a not-for-profit and going for charitable status on that. So it's sort of by industry and for industry. So I was previously heading up Aussie Cyber, which was funded by the government, DISA in particular, like Department of Industry, Science and Resources. And there was a lot of work done, probably over $30 million. So it was one of Malcolm Turnbull's strategies back to make us a smarter nation and invest in innovation. And the cyber part, and I think Aussie Cyber was the longest running one out of those growth centres that he'd actually set up there. But it sort of come to a natural conclusion, and the Australian Cyber Network is really set up from there. So we got all the assets that would sort of grown from there, because the industry was, cottage industry, probably still is really to a degree. But now there's over 315 businesses, sort of listed in here as cyber businesses. And so really it's to try and help the industry grow to the next stage. It's sort of gone through that metamorphosis or that starting stage. And with the 2030 strategy, we thought an ideal time to sort of ramp that up and sort of grow from there.
Yeah, fantastic. I know you're super passionate about cyber protecting businesses.
Yep.
Can I ask you a question? In your eyes and all the people you talk to, meet and see, are we winning or are we losing? Where are we?
Losing big time, I mean, the stats probably reflect it, but it's probably worse than the stats. Like the Australian Cyber Network, when you sort of look at the reports from ACSC or ASD reports, at the end of last year, it was an attack reported 1 every 6 minutes, right? It was up from 1 every 8 the year before. But I think it's a lot more than that, because I had a friend of mine actually call me. His daughter got a cyber incident happen where she was 8.5 months pregnant. She's changing the nappy of her child while she's pregnant with another one, gets a call, accidentally transfers $20,000. That didn't get reported, right? So, and I know there's a lot of those because I work in the industry like you get calls from people all the time saying, this happened. Nigel, what do we do? They'll ask you the question and you go through the process, right? And, we were doing some stuff even last week with Michelle McGuinness. So both Tom and I and Murph, and we did CISO Sydney, where she was the keynote speaker, and then we did some recordings with her and met with the team, Home Affairs on Friday. I think everyone knows that it's a lot worse than what it is out there, but it's how do we fix that, and that's the $1 billion question or billions dollar question, really. What's it going to be? $10 trillion over this year, they believe, in cybercrime, which is higher than illegal drug trade, so. As a criminal, why would you bother trying to get drugs across the border and all that sort of stuff, where you can get online and buy something on the dark web and start working for nothing and make hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Really scary numbers. Look, in your opinion, where are we falling short? What's the deficiencies that either business owners, government, legislation? Just talk to us.
It's all together. It's the basics, right? It's and we've often spoken about the slip, slop, slap of cyber. What is that? And so the government did Act Now, Stay Secure as a campaign last year, which was, they said, passphrases. Password manager is just as good, right? If you really put that out there, you can get a free password manager like Bitwarden or 1Password or whatever. Multi-factor authentication, updates when available, right? So, and that's pretty good. I think there was an IBM study that showed that if you had unique passwords or a password manager and multi-factor authentication, you could avoid 71% of all attacks. Just having that extra layer makes a difference. When we sort of spoke about it, it's not put in business right from the start, is it? When you set up a business, they say to you, go get your business registered, because they want to get the tax and all that sort of stuff. But my belief is, mate, we need to go all the way back to schools and teach the fundamentals. We're giving kids devices in their hands before they can speak. You see parents using that as a babysitting device. But what have they got access to from there? You know, like it's almost like throwing the keys of the car to your kid and say, good luck on the road. You know, we take them through 120 hours of driving and they get to watch us do that a lot. But online, I think we need to sort of go backward a fair way to go forward. We're trying to unlearn bad habits in the workplace. And it's people who run these companies who don't know the first thing about cyber trying to teach it.
What's your answer? I know you're working on a couple of things with SMB 1001, DSI. Can you share to our listeners where you're at with that?
Yeah, so Dynamic Standards International, which it is now, we've got a group of people, smart people. I mean, you've had the Godfather, Darren Hopkins, on here a few times. He's on the steering committee with me, so I'm chairing that committee. And we're passionate about basically helping businesses with the basics. It needs to be simple to start with. There's 6 stages or 6 steps to take in the bronze level. Go to silver, go to gold. You can be handheld through the process, you know, with a MSP or MSSP. But it's really about how do we get the foundations built in businesses, you know, and some of them we're going to have to retro in, obviously, when people start. But the basics of this is going to get someone up to a protected standard that's going to make them less vulnerable and less likely for an attack. So I think the stats are 97.8% of businesses in Australia are, you know, classed in that SMB sort of level. I think, 98, it's actually, I think 98%, you know, so... But they're not getting looked after. You know, it's the big end of town that have the budget and seem to look after themselves, the big banks and all those people that we know and we see on the ASX. But that's not where the criminals are looking. They're looking at that next level down, right? You know, the guys you're looking to protect and girls that's where they're actually targeting. They're saying easy to get in, less secure, not having the security teams in there. They're more the sitting ducks they're looking for. And so it's really just building those fundamentals in there to make sure that you're on the same page. I think for a business like yourself or any business that deals with small business too, having something like the SMB 1001, it's not like I'm telling you to put this in your business because I want to make some money out of you, which you might not be doing, but that's perception is like, you need to do this to be secure. Okay, that's a lot of money. But with the SMB, you can say, here's where you sit. Here's a roadmap going forward. Now we can work a budget that fits in with there to sort of move you forward. You know, and I think that sort of makes it a bit more of a comfortable conversation on both sides of the fence.
100%. I know we've done quite a few events now, you know, just promoting CyberCert SMB 1001, and, you know, in terms of just the simplification of it, you know, it's a standard, it's best practice, you know. Correct. If you follow this, you touched on before about having a multi-factor authentication, you know, a password. If there's one question that someone asked you, like, Jason, what should I do to help my business be better with cyber? How do you answer that?
Well, again, I think when we built CyberAware, like after, you know, the stuff that happened with New Domain, CyberAware was we white label that, but program, but it's more of the awareness, and it's the awareness part where we're really slow on. So the training's a key thing, and I think that gets overlooked a lot as well. Yeah. So it's the education piece could actually really help. And as I said, going back to school would help, but you need to re-educate people already past that point, you know, and that is in the workplace. And I think we built in the health check and like the SMB 1001 now in the back of that so that people can sort of then measure against and see where they might be short. But I think those foundational stuff are really good, right? You know, if you do have strong, unique passphrases, passwords, whatever you're going to do there, but don't repeat it across the board, right? You know, that makes it pretty simple for people. Mm. The multi-factor, where it can be applied, should be applied everywhere, you know, as well. And, you know, obviously updates are usually patching a vulnerability. So people, another update, I shouldn't do it, but you usually should, because it's usually patching something that's a vulnerability. Yeah,
when you say you shouldn't, it's usually a bit too late sometimes.
Yeah, that's right,
so really good feedback there, Jace. Talk about the government. I know you've been quite, you know, they listen to you, you're a strong voice there. Is there anything you feel that, you know, they should be doing more, or, you know, how's the engagement going there? Yeah,
it's good, I think, but the thing is, it shouldn't be all the government's responsibility. I think the government are pulling the right levers at the moment. I think the 2030 strategy and the team at Home Affairs are doing a fantastic job. You know, when we look at it, they are listening, and they don't just listen to me, they listen to the industry, and I think they're spreading that voice a bit more. It used to be probably too much listening to the top end of town or people who had a vested interest in it, and it has spread a bit wider now, and they're actually taking on board a lot more of the community, you know, as a whole. So I think that's a key thing. Look, I don't have a horse in the race. This is not about me, and it's not about me making money. It's actually quite the reverse. It's costing me to do what I do. But the thing is, I'm that passionate about getting it turned around that I'll do whatever it takes to get there, you know. But I did give myself a time horizon myself to say, if I can't move the needle in the next 2 or 3 years, then I'm out. I'll go do something else. Maybe I'll go create another business, you know. But, I just think we're at a precipice now where it's now or never. I don't think there is we're a long way behind in a lot of fronts. And if we don't sort of pull the trigger on things now, we could be be in big trouble.
Yeah, and as a true entrepreneur, you always want to find a solution, and your 2-year horizon sounds great. On that 2-year horizon, crystal ball, and where do you see the future? And like, obviously we're losing the battle. You know, we try and do these podcasts to try and educate people, because I know from speaking firsthand, we've got hundreds of customers, and I still see occasional boards that I present to, and they say, "Oh, look, Nigel, it all sounds good, but you know, why would a hacker or a threat actor want to target us?" They just miss that education piece, right? So, if you were to crystal ball the next 2 years, where do you think we will end up going as a country, really, as Australia?
Yeah, well, look, it's being led from the top. Like, it's actually really inspiring to hear someone like Michelle McGuinness and you know, that alignment with the strategy and where they're really trying to push it. And the whole team, I think last year they did 22 different exercises, you know, like as in full-blown attacks, you know, to get companies to go through that, because you can shuffle bits of paper on a table to say we've gone through an exercise. It's a bit different to going through a bit more of a full-scale exercise, right? So I think there is a lot of stuff happening there, but I think as an industry, we are still too segmented and siloed, and people are still looking out for themselves and their self-interest. I often see, you know, on the dark web side, if I find a ransomware kit or, you know, an email compromise phishing kit that works, I'm telling everyone about it and saying, I'm going to sell this to you, but get involved, right? If we find something on the good side, we tend to go the other way and say, I'm going to make a company out of this and I'm not sharing this with anyone, right? You know, and the intel doesn't seem to get spread. So if something happens, there's only certain people knowing about it and not the whole industry, you know. So I think as an industry, we need to support government, we need to back academia, we need to really look after the community and think a bit broader, because, you know, it is the more vulnerable in the community that are getting hit. It's people that are going through cancer treatment. I remember a lady got a call from a scam centre from overseas. She'd said, I just got back from, you know, I've got stage 4 cancer, I've just got chemo done. She had 57,000 in the account. The person just drained it out without even a thought. Don't care. Sure. Like, it's just, there's no empathy there, right, or anything. So that's what upsets me, is that these sort of people are getting it. You know, we see the big attacks which made all the press, but none of those companies got hurt from it. They got a little dip in share price and they're back and running, and, you know, no problem. And I think that it didn't hit the Australian economy or public as much as the thing that didn't move the needle on those is someone had to go change their driver's license, or, you know, had to change some phone numbers or details, but did they lose that much financially? Yep. And I think they were big attacks, as in scale of people, and there's a lot of our data out there on the dark web that can be used against us now, but, you know, do people care? And so I think going forward is, we've already seen with AI how much of a change that's made, or machine learning, you know, so things like ChatGPT, you know, being able to voice clone and you know, do AI videos and stuff like that, you know, needing to, like, if having a conversation, if you called me, if we had a word that I knew, that we had a word that was only known between us, you know, that we should be using in our families and stuff like that, we're going to have to get on our toes a bit more, because the way we're being attacked is a lot more targeted and a lot more skilled. There isn't the Nigerian letter scam anymore that you go, oh, that's obviously dodgy. Yeah. They're really targeting and actually giving specifics on you, your family, and know a lot more about you.
So someone who's been at the forefront, can you share with our listeners some examples of some, like, real world examples that you've heard of or been involved in from a business point of view? Because I know when people listen, you know, I get comments going, oh, I heard on your podcast, you know, same thing happened to me. Like, is there any examples that you're comfortable to share?
It's way too often. Like, it is constant every week. I remember just before Christmas, not this year, but the year previous, a large concreting company lost 800,000 in a man-in-the-middle attack. And that's all wages, everyone gone. I mentioned at the top here about that 782,000. That was 3 property settlements that fell over. So it was actually a small Gold Coast law firm was doing property settlements. It was a West African crime gang had sent a over quota limit for Microsoft. They'd gone in there, they'd keylogged the password, watched the email account for 3 weeks and saw that she was transferring or putting money into this trust account. They stopped the emails going out, changed the details, sent it off, 782,000, 3 property settlements. They were out of business 6 months later, the law firm themselves, you know. So it's happening to us. I said, my friend, the other week, 20 grand. They knew about her Ubank account and details. They said to her that, you know, now we know and we should give advice, stop, call the bank, right? The bank's not going to call you and do that sort of stuff. But it's just the timing of it, right? You know, sometimes just the timing, and you get a call, and she said 5 minutes later, you know, imagine being 8.5 months pregnant, you know, with another young kid, and you get this sort of stuff, and that sinking feeling when you're just about to have a kid, you know. So it's those sorts of things that I think, and these stories, it's like, you remember when they showed the car crash stories, you know, people drink drive or not wearing a seatbelt and, you know, all those sorts of things. Cyber, we do need more of that. So they're good stories to tell, as in to wake people up.
Correct,
but
yeah.
as you said, boards are not have the same conversations. Why would they look at us? Why would they target us? Or why would they a concrete company or a small law firm doing property settlements on the Gold Coast with only 10 staff? Why? Because you're an easy target, because they go for the lowest hanging fruit.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's only going to get worse, because we touched on it off air earlier, is that quantum computing, artificial intelligence, cyber, like the trilogy is really, heating up, and businesses are way behind in a lot of those.
Absolutely.
Can you share us a bit about, where you see that going?
Well, you look at wars. Now wars are, remember when the Russian-Ukrainian war happened? Remember Elon Musk had to step into the Ukrainian side to give them the Starlinks to get them online, because the Russians had taken them offline first, and that was, he didn't want to get involved.
Connectivity was oxygen, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the Crimea stuff, because he didn't want to start a war, but he wanted to protect that the hospitals and everything else could run. He wasn't trying to get involved in the war per se, but to make sure that they could be protected and actually look after their citizens and stuff like that. So that is the tenet of war, and that is the easiest way to use something. I mean, you see drone attacks now going around. You see there's a soldier in the middle of a paddock and bang, they're just taken out, So the level of where war is going on warfare, it's a cyber war on all fronts. We're being attacked all the time, and you've got to make sure that you're protected, and just go from that. I mean, zero trust is a term we use in the industry, but just trust nothing and nobody. So if it is the bank or someone, hang up, call your bank. Go to the website, the proper website, call the proper number on there, and go and talk to them directly. Did you give me a call about that? No, we didn't. Or yes, we did. Well, okay, I need to verify that and communicate that way. So we just have to be ultra cautious, because even stuff that looks like they can do it with text messages makes it look like it's coming from a legitimate source and everything. Don't click on anything. Don't do anything. Stuff we've been drilling in for years, but we just got to keep saying the same thing. It's like the slip, slop, slap, or click, clack, front and back, or whatever. We just need to keep nailing it and saying, don't do it. Stop. Slow down. Don't act quickly. Just slow down.
And zero trust, you touched on it before. That's the default. Unfortunately, we live in a society, right? So, talk to us a bit about, in terms of, if you were to crystal ball, how a small business could just be better protected. You talked about that education. You talked about, putting in MFA, putting in better passwords, things like that. How was a board that really sees technology as a foreign concept, right? So, the reason businesses like us exist, we're a managed service provider, managed security provider, is they want to outsource everything to us. I guess the challenge we find, and why we want to try and do these podcasts from an education point of view, is really, how do you convince someone that they need something that they haven't been impacted by, or they can't see it's
a hard sell, isn't it?
Correct.
It is a hard sell. It's like insurance or anything like that, right? But we talk about a cost of living crisis. You want a cost of living crisis, get a cyber attack happen to your business, right? So, what are you going to spend to protect it? I think it's almost, I use the same analogy as back at your house. So how much do you want to protect your house? Do you feel you need deadlocks and screen doors and locks on windows and cameras? And just think of how far you want to take that. Is it back to base, or what are you going to do to monitor it? And I think with businesses, you're going to go, what level of risk am I willing to take, and what am I willing to cover for that risk, in that loss scenario. So a small business, I think they're saying it's average $50,000 loss, right? In a small business, attack. Now, that's a lot for anyone in anyone's language, right? And that's enough to take some businesses out, but it can be a lot higher. We spoke, those other ones were closer to $1 million. How much is it going to cost you as a risk to lose that? How much do you want to protect yourself against that? So I think it really needs to be a conversation. Don't be stupid about it, but be actually quite smart about, what do you have to protect? Are you taking online payments, or where are those vulnerabilities in there? Depending on your business, you really need to say, what parts we need to cover. If you're transacting a lot online and you're online and out in the open a lot more, you need more protective mechanisms. If you're a manufacturing business, you still have options where you might have machines onto the internet and stuff, and people could attack you that way. So you just need to know where your most vulnerable points are and actually go back from there, like you do with any other part of your business. What do we need to cover? And I think occupational health and safety is something that people in business get. I mean, as a board member or as a director of a company, if someone kills themselves on the worksite, you're personally liable for that. I think if you take the same lens and look at cyber in the same way and think of it as another attack vector like that, I think if we give it more of that workplace occupational health and safety thing is, remember, if there's a spill there, Nigel, someone puts a sign out. Oh, we better put a sign there to warn other people. With cyber, sometimes people make a mistake, but they don't report to anyone because they feel embarrassed. Oh, I clicked on something and I think I might have opened something up, but I don't want to tell anyone. I think we need to change that culture around that, is that report it. If it looks suspicious, report it. And that's, again, not just at that macro level, but at the micro level, that we can all help each other by reporting back what we see. So I think looking at it from more of an occupational health and safety, and how much do we need to insure ourselves against those sorts of things online are we willing to take or risk?
Yeah, fantastic. Changing gears, instead of talking just about doom and gloom from cyber, we know it's relevant, but I know we spoke beforehand about a fund that you're in the process of raising.
Yep.
So, I think it's fantastic. There should be more and more investment around, AI, quantum and cyber, right? Because that is the trilogy we keep talking about. For those listeners out there, do you want to share, I guess, what you're focusing on next and, how can they be part of it? How can they spread the word? How can they help you? Because ultimately you're going to be helping, Aussie founders develop some solutions that could change the world.
Yeah, well, the thing is that, like you, having an entrepreneurial background, I'm always looking for solutions. How can we fix things? So we've got, at this stage, probably committed about, and we're sitting here, in February now, by sort of probably April or May this year, we'll kick off our first, hopefully, camp. But we want to, basically get sovereign capability, as something mentioned in the 2030 cyber strategies, that we need to build our own capability here. And what happens often, Nigel, is the companies that are really big and good, Atlassian, just so we talk about Bugcrowd or, Casada, all these different companies, they end up going offshore and they'll go set up. We don't have a system here which supports entrepreneurs and startups. So
Not yet.
We're about to, yeah. So we want to do it where we basically have a panel of people like, the top entrepreneurs that have actually gone there and done it and leading other ones, and giving a hand up. And so we'll have a fund there that will sit there to solve the top problems that we need to solve for, not just here in Australia, but around the world. And Israel, as a country, are really good at doing this. So 30% of the billion-dollar companies in cybersecurity come out of Israel. Not hard to work out why. There is compulsory service mechanism there, that you do have to go and work in the army. But if you're in a red teaming environment, like work in the cyber part, it's 5.5 years. And then they spin teams out after that to basically build businesses. So, like the really big cyber companies, as I said, 30% for a population of less than 10 million, pretty impressive. Yeah, right. There's certain models we can copy around the world, but we want to basically make Australia, as Malcolm Turnbull was trying to do a few years ago, more of a smart nation and more innovative, that actually we can build these sorts of things. And the strategy calls out for it, so we want to try and help assist in that area.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, I'm happy to spread the news because I think that it's a great initiative. Probably a final comment, because I'm conscious trying to keep this short and sweet so our listeners can listen on their drive, wherever. What do you want to be known as, Jason? Like, I know you're so passionate about cyber and really leaving a positive impact, but what's your legacy going to be?
Yeah, I don't want to be known per se myself. I'd love to be the driver behind a lot of these changes, and that I'd love to put us out of business, basically, that we don't need to do cyber, like that cyber is done and it's covered, and that people just basically automatically do stuff like you brush your teeth before you go to bed as a kid, or, you put on a seatbelt as soon as you get in the car. I want cyber habit to be a similar sort of thing that we just don't think about. It's just something we do, and it's something we do every day, and it just happens, and we protect ourselves. So I'd like to put us all out of a job if possible, because if we solve that problem, it's a pretty big and vexing problem for all of us. But yeah, I'd love to be, just discover something in that fund or somewhere where it just goes, that solves the shit, right? And doesn't matter about quantum or anything like that. We don't have to worry about it, right? And so, yeah, I'd love to be a part of that in some way, shape or form. But yeah, I'd rather sit behind the scenes rather than in front of it. All the other businesses I've done, I've been more behind the scenes. But this one, I see, I just need to be a voice out there to try and drag people along. It divides the crowd, but if you stand for something, you're usually going to, turn people away from you, and that's fine. But I'm doing it for the right reasons. I know I can sleep easy at night knowing that everything I've done in business and everything, I've never done anything bad to anyone. So, and this is one of those ones where I want to make sure we really move the needle and make a big difference.
Fantastic, mate. Look, Utopia is doing yourself out of a job, so I wish you well, and I'm sure you're well on your way. Jason, thank you so much for coming on and being a guest here at Red. Really appreciate it, and we'll like to get you back in a few months' time and see how the fund's going. And,
I'd love to go toe to toe with the Godfather. Is he up to 3 now?
He is, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'll got to get to 4 before he gets to another one.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks,
Great
mate.
to have you on board.
Thank you, buddy.